X-Men. We only have one X book. Thus one.
Bro, thank God we only got one fucking X book. I think they knew what they was throwing out at us.
Yeah, this is a pretty dense motherfucker in terms of story. It's not like a long book, but there's a lot that happens in it. Last we left off with X-Men, and this is the Hickman book. This is the mainline series, so a lot of this is vital. This is X-Men number 19. Last we left off, we are catching up with the group of mutants that entered the Vault, which is this like basically this futuristic fucking post-human factory, like this constantly evolving mechanism that's hard to explain because it's Hickman technology, and it is a lot. So basically, the premise behind this is that inside of the Vault, time moves very differently. There could be a week outside, as we learn in this comic. A week outside essentially boils down to 100 years inside. So
century.
Yeah. It's the hyperbolic time chamber on fucking steroids. So they sent in the most adaptable mutants that they have. Wolverine, former X-23, current secondary Wolverine, Laura. Sync, who has the ability to copy abilities and other things. And Darwin, who is basically able to adapt to any surrounding in order to survive.
Both passively and not... Is aggressive the word? Both passive and actively.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, his body just adjusts automatically if he doesn't put an effort to do it himself. It just happens.
Yeah, to survive, like, but he can also will his body to do certain things.
Exactly.
Isn't that the guy who got killed in
First Class? Yeah.
Yeah,
First Class.
Really dumb.
I like the movie.
He's the one person that wouldn't have. It was a cool. No, it was a cool movie, but that was. He was weird. The one person that wasn't supposed to die.
To Shaw, out of all people, Sebastian Shaw killed him. But in any case, last we left off, they were facing off against the Children of the Vault, which are, progressively evolving organisms that are spawned by this city. And the city can just kind of designate them to evolve further. And the reason that they're studying this place in the first place is because this is where they believe this massive threat to mutant kind called the post-humans, who are kind of like these humans merged with technology. This is where they'll spawn. So they're trying to, I guess, learn as much as possible about it. Last we left off, they fought some of the Children of the Vault. And one of them, like, basically suicide bombed themselves, but the 3 mutants managed to survive that. And yeah, it turns out they're in here for a very long time. We get a little timeline throughout the issue where it explains what happens. I can't go through all of them because then we'll be here forever, but we get a little bit of, the specifics of what happens in this timeline as the story parts of this comic. We learn that Darwin eventually assimilates so much with the city that he's able to basically give off a signal that kind of hides them from the Children of the Vault and the city in general. So, they just sat back for a while and they watched and they learned as the city, incubated children, essentially. And one day they went in and infiltrated one of the hives where the kids are being grown. And it turns out that that's not a good idea because there is one child known as Madre, Spanish for mother. So that's interesting. Who kind of just watches them while they sleep, guards them. And at some point they make this mistake where they leave a piece of Darwin behind. And the Children of the Vault pick it up and use it against them. The Vault kind of assimilates the DNA that they got from Darwin, which is pretty shitty for them to have, because if their children can be able to adapt to anything, that's pretty rough. Not too cool. So at some point, they could only go so far doing this covert shit, so they decided to go in there, take down Madre, and get some real information. And they learn a little bit about what's actually going on in the city from this child known as Diamante. And essentially, he knows everything the city does. And years ago, when the X-Men first fought the children of the Vault, they were the first generation children. And because they lost, the city said, oh, okay, I gotta, adapt to the information I got and make new children. And so the second generation kids were made. And that generation of kids had Serafina, who in House and Powers of X is revealed to have escaped the Vault and was captured by Orcus, and then escaped again, as we see in X-Men. And when she came back, they evolved those kids further based on the information they got from her. So, the city's ever evolving, and that's the whole thing. So, in order to fight fire with fire, like the X-Men themselves had to kind of adapt to themselves. They can't escape because there's this shield around the city, so they gotta stay and fight basically until the mission's done. And in a certain raid to go into the city itself and like figure out what they can learn, they got ambushed and Darwin was taken from them. This is where it kind of... Oh, sorry.
No, if I may, well, just to briefly recap what you were saying, right? They got their information. They broke, they were in the city for years and years and years. We know that, sneaking around, trying to, learn as much as they can. And then they got to a point where they got to Diamante, and they got all the information they needed. And they knew that the city was at a point where, they like it felt like it wasn't enough. So, to continue evolving. So the reason they're even there for even longer than that is because they can't find a way to break out of the temporal bubble that they're in. So they're essentially trapped within the city, like I said, for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty insane.
Yeah, which is a few weeks in the outside time.
So this was so them they as you were about to say, Chris, they're planning on an attack on the city itself, the actual brain center of the city, and it's more so a desperation play because they're trying to find a way how to get home and bring back that information because that is the mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, to get back home.
Yeah.
So as you were saying,
so both Darwin and Wolverine are taken. But using the powers of a child known as Terremoto that Sync takes, he basically burrows underground and manages to escape the city for a time. He actually kind of waits out for a week, which is a century in the time of the city. So he waits out, I guess, catches his breath for a week, and then he returns to rescue Wolverine and Darwin. But by the time he gets back, only Wolverine is there. He manages to save Wolverine. Darwin's not there, and they kind of refuse to leave without Darwin. So they go in and they try to save Darwin. They find him in this weird tubey thing where he's levitating in this beam of light, and I guess they use his powers to. They explain what happens here in this little detail thing as that big energy beam thing is that they basically atomized Darwin and used him to make the fourth generation of children. So I think all these guys essentially have Darwin's powers on top of their powers, where they're adaptable to a degree. They're
I mean, I don't know how exactly they're gonna flesh it out, but I would just imagine that it's more so than them just all having some type of a slice of his ability or something like that. I think it's just the means to advance them further.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that ingredient. Maybe. I think it wouldn't be super creative if they were all we're all adaptive now.
Yeah.
Too.
No, I think
that might be the case,
right.
but I think it's more so kind of yes, the next ingredient we need to level up.
Yeah.
And what's crazy about this is I might be skipping ahead in the story. But
I don't think.
I mean, who cares, right?
Yeah.
Had they not gone in with Darwin, they would not have been able to upgrade to that point. And what's significant about that is that when Serafina, the black and white chick that they rescued from Orcus all the way back in Dawn of X, right?
Mm-hmm.
She came back to the city with the information, and the city confirmed that they had that they did not have the means to to combat against Krakoan era mutantdom.
Mm-hmm.
Who have conquered death and et cetera, and have became so mighty.
Yeah. Even with the third generation kids, like they upgraded once, and they're like, "Damn, we're still not good."
Yeah. So they really didn't. You could maybe at some point they would have been able to with time, but maybe it wouldn't have been enough time because obviously we know it's finite. There is a point where the phalanx come and destroy the earth, et cetera.
Yeah.
But nah, man, them bringing Darwin was a huge miscalculation.
Yeah, and it stinks because that's a hindsight is 2020 move because they had no idea. I mean, the whole point of this was to learn what they were up to. And it turns out they brought them what they needed to go.
Yeah,
further.
They fucking learned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole time they were sneaking around, they knew and they lured them. They lured them into figuring out what Darwin was about, getting pieces of him, and then finally getting the full source material. Setting literally they baited them into because they knew how desperate they was, and they knew it was predictable. They was trying to get out.
Yeah.
What else could they want to do? They couldn't make an effort to destroy the city. They knew they had enough power to stop these 3 mutants. It wasn't enough.
Exactly.
They could definitely survive. But yeah, it was really well thought out. And these informational pages have always been pretty solid amongst all of the X books. But wow, do they do a really great job at, I guess, damn near condensing the story that happens over almost, hundreds of years?
Yeah.
It was really, really well documented. Yeah. I mean, and there's still more to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
yeah. So after Darwin is atomized, and the fourth children are starting to evolve now, Wolverine and Sync are like, "Fuck it, let's get the fuck out of here." So
yeah, we gotta go. Yeah,
yeah, we gotta get the fuck out. Okay, so the mutant recon team, which is Wolverine and Sync, they use stasis DNA of Mebravon, a child disruptor, to get through the shields. And I mean, it's not a painless plan. They can get through the shield, but it fucking hurts. And Wolverine gets through because of the healing factor, and Sync gets through because Wolverine transfers their powers basically to him. But it burns off all their clothes and their hair, except for their eyebrows.
And it dampens their powers, so they can't really heal after the fact.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I was like, wait, how do they survive then? But I guess as they passed through, they actively healed via Laura's, via Wolverine's healing factor, and then after the barrier, they couldn't heal or use the power, which is significant.
Yeah. I mean, they can use their power because, okay, so what happens is that, now...
Oh, you know what?
I mean,
you're right.
That's why it hurts them, the shield will just, fucking really fuck with their powers, but I guess because they used the disruptor, that kid disruptor, to, minimize the effects of the shield, that's why they were able to heal as much as they are or get through it at all and keep their powers for the most part. That's how I see it.
Wait, why does he say you don't have your powers then? They both say to each other they don't have each other's powers, but Laura's still able to pull out her knives? Is it not her ability?
Wait,
that just a skeletal thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think this is maybe a miss.
I mean, it's fine. You could still interpret it as somebody had to stay behind to slow them down because, Wolverine enough is not able to defeat these super evolved fucking post-human children of the vault.
Yeah,
guys.
So they're about to get chased down by the now evolved children, and Laura basically tells him to leave. I'll hold him back. I'm strong enough right now that I can, buy you some time. And Sync manages to just walk out the front door of the vault, but not for very far because he just gets blasted from behind. And this was a cool move where he's like, now that he's out, Professor X can reach him. So he calls out to Professor X in his mind, and he's like, "Professor, can you hear me?" And I guess that Professor X takes that exact moment to like back up Sync's like entire mind.
Yeah.
I mean,
hundreds of years of information.
This is a buzzer beater if I've ever seen a fucking buzzer beater. And yeah, the children kill Sync, and we cut over to Krakoa where Sync is being reborn. He is able to confirm the death of Laura because, you know, she died before him and he saw her sacrifice herself for him. So, you know, Darwin, not only is Sync is back, but Laura is also back.
Oh, by the way, yeah, they also brought Darwin back as well because you can. All right, yeah, so I thought about this as well, and it could be an interesting plot point in the future, but the wording. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the point, but basically they were saying that they was getting ready for a final atomization of Darwin. Meaning it seemed like they was gonna, like, maybe there was only so many times they could do this with his body before it could, you know, whether there was a limit to how much he could take, or maybe there's a limit to how much they can do with it before his body adapts to them not being able to do to it. I mean, like, configure it. Who knows, you know? But they in the writing it said that it was okay. Look. It's in the writing. Whatever.
I guess
just take my word for it.
No, you're right.
Oh no, it says right here. Subject Darwin final atomization and biomass seeding complete. 4th generation children now possible. Begin child. Yeah.
So now the kids are cooking. So it's not.
Yeah, they got what they needed from him. So he's dead.
Yeah, and you know, at this point, you got to resurrect Darwin. I mean, like, they already got what they needed. Why not resurrect Darwin? Yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic. There's also this underlying like subplot.
Oh yeah.
This thematic thing about, you know, what love really is, because like Sync and Wolverine become kind of like there's no like romantic scene with them, but they it's implied that like they fall in love with each other over the centuries they spent together in the vault. And he thinks about this time where he talked to his dad about his mom, you know, and how, you know, the idea of dying for someone to express love is a very human idea, whereas like someone like him and Wolverine, who are basically immortals, that, you know, for them love is living for someone who can just kind of live forever and, you know, just staying alive just so they can be with them or for their sake. It's an interesting thing. It's a very, I guess, Hickmanian way of looking at things, to separate from a human mindset and go to like this weird higher conscious type of thinking. I mean, it's not like uber important, but it is a nice little, you know, like it's a nice little seasoning on a story where you could get like a little sub theme going on here as well. And comics in particular are kind of actually pretty good at that, I would say. Like the trials they go through being allegories for a deeper meaning. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what an issue. Even if there were other...
I mean, hold on. If I may continue on what you were saying with their relationship, I mean, even aside the philosophical aspect of it, it definitely gave it emotional stakes. I mean, there's certain things we could only, like, you know, illustrate and articulate to y'all. But, you know, within the pages reading them, as there was this, you know, this overlaying commentary. All right, so the only person that makes it out the vault is Sync, and he's the only person that got his memories back.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, Laura comes back and she doesn't have any of those memories, and none of that the memory of that bond. So it kind of makes it a little tragic. I don't know if this is a love interest that they're gonna like build on for the future. I think it would be cool. I kind of think it was just meant to tell a little story and give it emotional stakes, but it was very well done. It made me think. Pulled at the heartstrings. This is a really good issue of X-Men, man. This was, talk about setting the bar and or rather maintaining a standard.
Yeah,
this is the Hickman we love.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best issue of X-Men, like Hickman's personal writings of X-Men in a long time. Probably like this is probably the best issue. I can't recall a better one, except for maybe the first arc where they go to Orcus. I thought that was pretty fire, but this was an unrivaled. And to jump on that, you're right. Like without Sync surviving, living for someone, like Laura wouldn't even be resurrected. They can't resurrect somebody unless they know they're dead. Sync being the only person who saw both of them die and making it out himself is super important, because then nobody would have resurrected Sync, you know. But
wow, that was a really nice parallel, and it also kind of satisfies me in a sense that even if there isn't any more romance pursued after the fact, he kind of did it. He's like, yo, I did that, and I'll endure it and it's like I'll endure that pain and that ache of missing out on that, and I'll be okay, satisfied knowing that I was able to keep you alive.
Yeah,
that was
sick.
Very well said, Chris. Very well done, Mr. Hickman.
I mean, dog, if there were other, this is the only American comic we're covering this week. Even if there were others, easily VGI.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the Flash. I thought the Flash was pretty cool.
The Flash did come out.
It was a little weird.
We forgot to do it as a one shot, but classic Flash. Honestly, it felt pretty good. Vintage
it was
Flash.
Classic Flash, yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got to say about the X-Men.